So, today we are going to do postmodernism as a literary movement. Uh, to just understand the basics of postmodernism, it is important to convince yourself that postmodernism is not a literary movement only. It is basically a way of life, it is a way of thinking, it is a mode of expression. And postmodernism is not only expressed, or the postmodern thought is not only expressed through writings. It is also expressed through the works of art. It is also expressed through our lifestyle. It is also expressed through, it is also illustrated through our behavior. It is also illustrated through the consumer culture that we are following right now. And uh, it postmodernism is something which has encompassed each and every facet of your life. So let's move on to the introduction of the term postmodernism. Postmodernism is a combination of two words, post and modernism. Post is basically post is a prefix here, and this prefix is used for before. Okay, so you must have heard post-mortem, that is after death. Then post-colonial, you have already done post-colonial colonialism. It is after the era of colonialism. So post means after. The term modernism has nothing to do the with the characteristics of modernism overlapping with the characteristics of postmodernism. Remember that it is here the term modernism is only used as it was used in post colonialism, that is after the colonial period ended. Here modernism, when modernism ended, and especially after the end of the two world wars, uh, we find that there is a lot of liberty, there's a lot of freedom that was being exercised by most of the people in most of the fields of life. So, the term postmodernism or modernism in postmodernism is just a coincidental, it's a chronological term. That is, when modernism ended, it came to an end, and modernism is movement that ultimately resulted in the destruction of all the major, all those standards that were built by the society uh, ever since the beginning of time. Uh, the more we proceed, you are going to understand postmodernism better. Like always, we are going to start with the introduction of the theory. And this theory, first of all, you are going to uh, uh, write the definition of postmodernism. Interestingly, the word postmodernism has been defined differently by different people. But there, one thing is common among all the definitions, and that one thing is that uh, postmodernism gives an individual liberty, his personal liberty, to proceed with whatever he wants to. For example, uh, if a postmodernist artist just creates a brick that is used to construct houses, and he says that it is art, there is no standard or there is no ruler which can uh, you know expel that break from being art. So postmodernism basically gives its followers the liberty to proceed as they want to. Okay, so let's move on to the definition. Remember that though in your notes you will be getting complete sentences or a complete definition in your notes. So remember that postmodernism is something which is multifaceted. As up till now, whatever I've told you about postmodernism, it, it is a postmodernism covers almost every field of human life, and it is not confined to the to arts or science or digital culture or consumer culture or economics or finances. It covers each and everything of related to human life, and that makes the you see here the word complex, the adjective complex has been used, which means that because postmodernism is covering each and every uh, facet of human life, it um, makes the movement very complex and difficult to understand, because a person is always at a you know a person um, who is a reader of classics. For him, they you know the postmodern literature might not be that appealing as uh, it should be. For example, if literature literally if literature really has the purpose of providing catharsis, so you find that postmodernism is a very complex literary movement. It is not easy to understand this. Then its emergence took place in the mid 20th century after the end of World War II. And up till now, some critics believe that postmodernism was a very short lived movement, whereas there are others who believe that even postmodernism is affecting contemporary literature, that is, the literature which is being produced right now. So even if the this tradition has come to an end, this movement has come to an end, still we find that it is impacting the modern ways of writing. It is still impacting the modern genres. It is still affecting, influencing modern art, our contemporary art. So the definition says that postmodernism is characterized by a rejection of traditional storytelling techniques. That is, postmodernism does not consider anything which is non-linear, or which does not follow Freytag's model of plot, that is his plot diagram. Postmodernism does not reject that. There is experimentation in postmodernism, and then it dismantles grand narratives. Grand narratives are the narratives that have been in practice, or which have been in vogue ever since the ever since the emergence of culture. So for example, grand narrative, goodness is a grand narrative. It is goodness is something which was considered to people or things were considered to be absolutely right or absolutely wrong in the past, but today we have some overlapping of goodness and evil, or might can say positivity or negativity. And you cannot label something as absolutely right or absolutely wrong. So that grand narrative of goodness has been dismantled, it has been absolutely destroyed, and emphasizes metafictional elements that it has brought new techniques of writing in the in literature. So if you look at the definition of a metafiction, and you'll come across this term again in the tenets of postmodernism, metafiction is basically it involves departure from standard narrative conventions. Standard narrative conventions were the established norms in writing. So metafictional elements are challenged by meta fictional elements have been emphasized by postmodern literature. The effect of these three points that have been discussed in the third point of this slide, that is rejecting traditional storytelling techniques, dismantling grand narratives, and emphasizing metafictional elements. uh, they have given the authors more liberty, more more freedom to express themselves. Therefore, they postmodernism basically challenges the set notions of authorship as well. Now, you would find that uh, if Hamlet has been written by William Shakespeare, and it has been written by William Shakespeare, but the abridged versions which are being taught at school, or the simplified versions, they are also considered literature. You cannot say that they are not literature, or they cannot be read by the students. So not only the notion of authorship or ownership has been challenged, but truth has also been challenged. And for truth, you can take the example of history. For many years, we have been taught various things which took or which occurred in the past, and these you know things, or these historical events have been telling us that a certain person is a hero, whereas today you are uh, told certain facts about people which make you question whether he was really a hero, whether he was really a person who could who could be labeled as a positive character, because there are things that might mislead you, or they might uh, put a screen on your eyes or on your vision, and you might consider that no, he's not that big a hero. Similar is the case with reality. The reality is no more a reality. Reality was these postmodernists believe that there was reality in the very past, but whatever we are experiencing today is the image of reality. Then there is a fragmentation, embracing a fragmentation. Embracing fragmentation means that they postmodernism accepts fragmentation, and fragmentation is basically a literary practice of the postmodern era. uh, as the word suggests, that a fragment basically means to disintegrate, or to divide, or to disunite. And uh, and fragmentation suggests that uh, that there is a loss of absoluteness. There is nothing absolute in the in writing or in your culture. Nothing is complete. Nothing is uh, in nothing is a whole here. Okay, nothing is confirmed here. And you'll get to know this better in the subsequent slides. Then there is another notion of intertextuality. To understand it, this term, uh, intertextuality, remember that the literary device, the rhetorical device of allusion. And illusion is Allusion. Illusion is basically that it is reference to another, either another piece of writing, or another or the writer's own, and a reference to the writer's own creation, and another literary masterpiece which he has created earlier. So there is a lot of use of intertextuality. And then there is irony as well. There's a lot of use of irony because of the constant irony being used as a tool of social uh, criticism or analysis of the social life. So, this postmodernism is a literary movement that is characterized by newness, innovation, non-conformity. Non-conformity is when you do not follow custom, you do not follow the set rituals. And it introduces postmodernism introduces a lot of new concepts in the in the field of writing, as it has introduced a lot of new concepts in the in the other fields of life as well. So now let's move to the next heading, or the next topic, which is historical context, or the background against which um, this postmodernism, this movement of postmodernism is set. Now, postmodernism emerged soon after the end of World War II. And this was the time period where people realized that all the grand narratives of justice, of peace, of strength, of power had come to an end. Because the and you can relate it to the establishment of League of Nations, which was built with the or which was formed with the purpose of ending war, but it did not, or it could not end war. Okay, and then the world witnessed the most traumatic of experiences or incidents, and that is the World War II, which resulted in the loss of lives of millions. And there is nothing above human life. And the way the blood was shed, the way people were killed mercilessly, which and the Holocaust, and this the whole um, World War II coming to an end with the atomic explosions that took place in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. We come to know that no, the war cannot end, and the struggle for power is going to continue. And for that, if war is if a physical war is not used as a weapon, something else would always be there which would be used as a weapon. For example, we can find the currently we are struggling for some sort of economic superiority is something very very far away. We are struggling for economic balance at least. Okay, so postmodernism, when it started, it was marked with disillusionment. That is, most of the ideals they had been shattered. Then skepticism. People realized that no, if there is no hope, and even if they hope for a better future, that is not possible, and a loss of faith in grand narratives. Ultimately, justice, uh, equality, uh, power, everything, all those grand narratives came to an end. And what caused these this death of grand narratives is the horrors that occurred in the war, the way millions of peoples were killed brutally, and then uh, there was a rise of mass media as well, which was reporting each and everything to the people. People didn't, the people or the spectators, the audience, they were no more. Separated from reality. Reality could not be hidden from them. And these two phenomenons, that is the horrors of war and the rise of mass media, they resulted in a sense of fragmentation, that is confusion. People were very confused, what to follow, what to consider right, and what to consider wrong. And this further resulted in uncertainty. Obviously, when you do not have any promises for the future, when you do not have anything for the future, any hope for the future, you cannot continue to just pin your hopes to grand narratives, that there would be a good time, there would be a good time. People have changed a lot. And these two things affected the postmodernist writers, and they started to experiment with new narrative forms, that new narrative, new subgenres of narrative, they came into being. And then they challenged the established norms as well. They challenged the those practices which had been conventional, which had been followed by people for quite a long time. And this further resulted in blurring the boundaries between high and low culture. What was considered high, especially during the Victorian era, during the Romantic era, was they were all, abased. They were all all those ideals had been shattered. So there was no difference between what really was a good culture, or high culture or low culture. So this affected postmodernism, or that resulted in the formulation of postmodernism as a literary theory. Now, let's move on to the tenets of postmodernism, the basic principles that have been deduced after a study of multiple criticism on postmodernism. So let's move on to those principles. The first tenet of postmodernism is the rejection of grand narratives and absolute truths. Here, instead of presenting a grand narrative that claims to explain the entirety of human existence, a postmodernist novel may embrace multiple perspectives and fragmented narratives. That is, it might go against, or a postmodernist novelist or a postmodernist writer might go against the set traditions, set culture. For example, when India was being partitioned, uh, uh, it was said that uh, that partition is not necessary. That is freedom or dividing the story, the country into two parts, was not necessary. However, uh, in Salman Rushdie, who is a postmodern writer, and you'll find his reference later in this video as well. So his novel Midnight's Children. It's Midnight's Children. In that, he's telling you about the history, the setting of the story, the of that novel is India, and here he has challenged through the themes that he has introduced. Salman Rushdie has challenged the notion of a single unified national narrative. He says that basically everyone has, with the passage of time, developed his own narrative, and this development of narrative gives the people to the liberty to be free. ठीक है, freedom to they get freedom. However, so the second tenet of uh, postmodernism is embrace of fragmentation and multiplicity. Fragmentation is that you do not have anything as a unified whole, number one, and and multiplicity is having variety. In a short story, especially which is written in postmodernism, you would find that there is a lot of use of non-linear techniques, and the story, you would find a mix and match of various or overlapping of various elements of fiction. For example, uh, there is uh, there is a movie. um it, it is that movie is called Memento. uh, Memento as in memory or something, a souvenir which is given to remember something, which is kept for in remembrance of something. So in that movie, that movie is based on a short story that was written somewhere in 2001, and the protagonist of that movie is basically on the lookout um, uh, of the murderer of his wife, and we find that uh, he is basically uh, he's suffering from dementia now. Because he's suffering from dementia, he has lost, uh, a lot of his memories, and not, those things come back to him in pieces. That memory, any memory that he has, is fragmented, and the whole story. And when you look at the movie yourself, sometimes you get confused as well, whether this scene is a reality, or this or the other one, or this scene is a reality or imagination. Then you have got multiplicity as well. Multiplicity is that most of the you know movies that are being produced, or even the novels that are being written, they have very they are open to a lot of interpretations, and many of them have ambiguous sort of endings as well, which leaves the audience awestricken, and constantly struggle for, or you constantly um, want to reach a conclusion. Then the next tenet of um, postmodernism is blurring of boundaries between high and low culture. You would find that a postmodernist poem, it might incorporate references to popular culture, things that were popular culture is that culture which was considered to be uh, not very respectable in the past, alongside references to classic literature, and through the combination of things that were considered to be very high, very elevated, so sophisticated in the past, uh, and low art. Low art is something which is which is a norm for the common people. Okay, so or it may be even beneath their level. So it is in postmodernism you would find that these boundaries of high and low art have been completely uh, confused. Okay, now here is a postmodern poet. His name is Allen Ginsberg. He has written a poem which incorporates the elements of jazz music which was in the past associated to blacks, the black Americans, street language. There is a lot of use of street language and pop culture, and these things, these phenomenons, they have been mixed with the poetic language, which is a norm. Okay, so the you cannot say that it is completely high art or completely low art, high culture or low culture. Rather, it is a mix of high and low culture, which challenges the traditional hierarchy of poetic subject matter, things which were considered to be considered not to be fit for themes in the past are now becoming themes. They are becoming the norm in postmodern culture. Then there is another tenet that is called metafiction and self reflexivity. Metafiction and self reflexivity is metafiction and self reflexivity is when you or the writer creates an atmosphere which seems to be real and unreal at the same time, and that might seem to be some sort of a constructed nature, because postmodernism is basing on, or it bases on construct. So here this these characteristics, metafiction and self-reflexivity, they give the narrator the ability to or the liberty to talk to the reader directly by addressing him, oh readers, or something like that. Even it seems as if while writing they are using conversation, and therefore we have a mix of dialogue and storytelling both in postmodern literature. And there are some postmodern writings which are totally based on dialogues, which is a dialogue which is basically a characteristic or an element of drama. So you can take the example of Kurt Vonnegut's story Slaughterhouse 5. And here the narrator is he interrupts the story to comment on the act of writing. That is, the narrator, while the story proceeds, he is telling you how writing should be done. And then there are some comments about the unreliability of memory as well. So their boundaries of fiction and reality and the art of storytelling and criticism, they uh, are all blurred. There is a mix and match, there is a collage sort of a thing. Then comes the next quality, uh, or a tenet of postmodernism. It is intertextuality and interdiscursivity. Sorry, interdiscursivity. Intertextuality, I've already told you that in postmodernism there are a lot of references to other works of literature. uh, a postmodernist story or any genre, it may incorporate references to other plays or literature or even cultural texts. And this is basically done to create layers of meanings. That is, it convinces the audience that a text can have more than one meaning or one interpretation. uh, it's not only the layers of meanings or the multiple interpretations, but it also invites readers to engage in intertextual interpretations. That is, if there is a reference to a classical writing in a postmodern play, you would question yourself why that reference has been made in this play or in this story or in this poem, and you are going to uh, link both these texts. For example, there is a play by Tom Stoppard, and it is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. It is these two are the characters of Hamlet, basically, and uh, Shakespeare, who was an Elizabethan writer or playwright, his characters have been uh, uh, brought to life again by this Tom Stoppard, and he is reimagining the events of Shakespeare's Hamlet from the perspective of two minor characters. These two were messengers, and they were in Shakespeare's Hamlet. But the story has been built, or the play has been built in such a way that it blurs the lines between the original play and its reinterpretation. That is, it is giving an altogether new angle to Shakespeare's Hamlet. Then comes parody. Parody, as you all know, that parody is something, when a parody occurs, when you make fun of someone or something. Irony is also used as a tool for social criticism. And then you have pastiche. Pastiche is a very important postmodern term. I'm going to explain this to you in a bit. Please wait. Now, a pastiche occurs when a text that has been written in the past, or a movie that had been created, that was created in the past, it some elements are brought uh, in another movie, not as a or another piece of text, not as copying or mimicking that other genre, but only to pay tribute to the creator of that thing. So parody might be an absolute copy, and pastiche is, here there is an element of tribute to the original creator. So, in postmodernist novels, you would find that there is a playful sort of a parody, and that is basically done in a specific genre or in an author's style. So, in order to challenge the established conventions of the time. For example, there's a story by Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Here, this story is basically it comes under the genre of science fiction. However, comedy and satire have been added to this short story in order to in order to give it an ironical touch. So again, you find an overlapping of the high with the low and low with the high. So again, a typical postmodern tenet principle. Then comes the playfulness and subversion of traditional genres. Here you would find that a postmodernist film may subvert. Subvert is to go against and deconstruct is again going against, and especially it is used in the literary theory of deconstructionism. You are going to do that in semester 7, constructionist theory or the theory of deconstruction. Here those language is used as a tool of creating or an ironical or a parody sort of a thing. uh, Here you would find that there is a um, these things are used playfully in order to create entertainment for the audience. So there's a movie by Tarantino. Tarantino is a Hollywood film director, actor, and producer. The movie is basically called Pulp Fiction, and that story that movie combines different elements like the elements of crime, black comedy, and non-linear storytelling. Telling. Basically, Tarantino is famous for this technique because he challenges the conventions of the genre and engages the viewers in an unconventional narrative structure. So this is another characteristic of postmodernism. Then comes deconstruction of language and meaning. There's a famous poet E. Cummings. Now, he believes that up till now we have been told that uh, no idea can be conveyed or no sentence can be completed without without subject and verb. However, the way he writes, he is E. Cummings. He writes. Does not use any you know any verb in his poems, and most of his poems are without any grammatical coherence. But still, he believes that a person or an audience who is interested in reading poetry can easily understand the meaning, the purpose of his of the poem. So, a postmodernist poem might deconstruct traditional language structures and questions the stability of meaning. It does not have any stable meaning. There is an other poem by E. Cummings. It's called Grasshopper. However, the way grasshopper has been spelt is R dash P dash O dash P dash H dash E dash S dash A dash G dash R. So the whole word has been, it is fragmented, it has been broken, and there is, you might think that it is a typographical, it might be having a typographical error. However, the poet intentionally disrupts this conventional, the conventions of language and literature in order to give the audience more liberty, the reader more liberty to interpret the poem. You might have come across his poem, one of his poems in the book by Mario Clarer as well. There is a poem there as well. It is about a mouse, I believe, and who is waiting to be killed. Now, in the past, such things would not have been made part of or the topic of discussion in poetry, whereas today this is being done, and even in a postmodern era, this practice is very common. And here, the readers, they are completely engaged in deciphering the meaning. They want to through these unconventional syntax and grammar. So it is a bit of a more effort for the reader. Now let's come to the key postmodernist philosophers. Now there are most of the terminology, most of the tenets have been taken from these philosophers, and or through the reading of these philosophers. So it is important to decipher between the philosophers from writers. So let's move on to the philosophers first. The first philosopher, postmodern philosopher, is the writer of the postmodern condition, and he is Francois Lyotard. It's R and D is not, they are not pronounced, and it is Jon. Jean is pronounced as Jon. Francois Lyotard. So in English, you might say Lyotard. However, in French, you can't say Lyotard. So Lyotard, Jean Francois Lyotard. So he is the writer of the postmodern condition. He has written this book, and here he is the first person to challenge the grand narratives that have been established in the past for many, many centuries, and they have been followed by people. Blindly. So he embraces, his time period is 1924 to 1998, and he promotes the establishment of small narratives. Then he is very skeptic. He that is he has no hope with the meta narratives, because these have ultimately crumbled, because there is no absolute justice. If you look at the meta narrative of history, there is no absolute history, there is no absolute justice, there is no absolute fair play. So he says that there is, he believes in the politics of difference. There is no politician who can be labeled as absolutely, a good politician or a bad politician, and he believes in variety of narratives and diverse voices. And now let's move on to the next one. So the next one is, you might call him uh, Jacques Derrida. However, in French, it is pronounced as Jacques Derrida. So he is a famous French philosopher, and he's known for his contributions to the theory of deconstructionism. So deconstructionism, basically, he bases his theory on language or linguistics, and he believes that no word has stable, as languages are unstable, so are the meanings of these languages. And uh, these languages develop or give meaning through associations, that is, with a combination with other words. For example, you can use the word crusade for if you are struggling for ending something. However, the same word can be used for those wars that were fought in the past, in the 13th century and the 12th and 13th century, salibi jange जिन्हें कहते हैं, these two uh, uh, crusades have a historical reference as well. So he says that you cannot only deduce meaning by associations or the use of words in different contexts, but you can also understand the meaning through binaries. Binaries are the opposites. For example, black and white, you understand black or you visualize black because there is something white in your mind. There is something that is another binary white is existing there in your mind. So he also challenges the dominant discourses, that is, he believes that the dominant discourse or the way people uh, uh, or public communicates or discuss is through the in the language of those who have a financial superiority. So he says that basically language is determined through the power structures. Okay, for example, in your introduction to linguistics, you might have heard the example of admiral. Admiral is basically a term, an English word that has been derived from Arabic roots, Amirul Beher. However, with the passage of time, because the Arabic culture is not that not very popular. So Amirul Beher has become a bit obsolete in English, and admiral is used because of the superiority of English colonists. Okay, so now let's move on to the next one. Now, the next philosopher is Michel Foucault, and he is also a French. He's a French philosopher. He's a political activist. He is a literary critic, and he is a social scientist as well. He, in his works, has studied the relationship of power and society, how something becomes powerful in a society, and it is through these powers people have their relations. For example, in mid 20th century, USSR lost its control over the world. It was an economic power. With the passage of time, America emerged as an economic power. So those people or those countries which used to be close to USSR at one time, they changed their loyalties towards USA because it had become a power. And this USA and USSR Cold War had been a very it had been a topic of investigation by many people. or many social scientists. So here and Foucault also believes that the power is, everyone is dependent on another person, everyone is dependent on everyone. For example, in post-colonial theory, you did that the colonizer is more powerful. We find that the colonizer is powerful because of the existence of the colonized, and these colonized people are as imperative as the colonizer himself. So your relations with any person, any authority, are based on the power he has. So he also believes that these power structures should be studied very well in order to make culture stand out, in order to make the people follow your norms. So people are going to follow the norms of the person who is, or of the authority who has power. So there is another Frenchman. This is the fourth, I believe, French philosopher. As in symbolism, you have done a lot of French philosophers. Same goes for postmodernism. So this is Jean Baudrillard. He is one of those philosophers who have studied, the science of reality. So he says that everything, he's is basically the proponent of the idea of hyper reality. He believes that there is no reality, and reality existed somewhere in the past, and everything that is present in reality is actually an imitation of reality. By the term imitation of reality, he means that he says that our society is made up of images. For example, your brand, the brand you are wearing, is the it is giving you, or it tells the society about not only your lifestyle but the way, or about your wealth as well. For example, if you are wearing a suit from some collection of that has sale, so people are going to consider you as, so imitation. So your dress shows the social class you belong to. Similarly, your address tells you, your address is basically the image of your social class. For example, if you are living in a defense housing authority, or you are living in Beria town, it means that you have a strong financial background. Secondly, the term hyper reality is more than reality. That is, your society is built up of images, and these images tell what you are. Then simulation, he uses the term simulation, or he has derived the word simulation in order to tell you that we are not living in a real world, we are living in the world of images. Then, and these images, some of these images are real, some are artificial, simulated. So a person gets confused which image to follow. Then he is a very important critique, or prominent critique. He offers a critique of hyperconsumption. Hyperconsumption is that we are using many things, we are collecting many things, and man has become more of a consumer than he's a man. For example, a person, you might find that in your wardrobe you have many clothes which you might not need, but you still have them, that you believe that you might need some of these in the future. And this leads to commodification, that is, every person, everything has become a commodity, and which has separated us from reality. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, so this person, Gilles Deleuze, he's also a French philosopher, and he has basically rejected all the hierarchical and binary structures which were there in the past. Hierarchical is that you classify something according to, on a basis of something. However, he says that there are no more hierarchies, there are no more binary structures, and he believes that there is a multiplicity of interpretations. uh, you cannot uh, understand, or you cannot uh, interpret one thing in one way. And again, he is a strong proponent of uh, uh, so you'll he also studied the potential of desire, that is how your desire helps you to establish something, uh, and creativity and difference. For him, creativity is something which is personal, it is completely subjective. Creativity is not it is not done, or a creative process is not done to make someone happy. Rather, it is there to express, to help the people express their own self. And then he also believes in that in the concept that there is no dominant power structure. Everything that rises must converge, that is, everything which sees a climax has to come down. So there is nothing which can be considered as absolutely right or absolutely wrong. Similarly, in the past, people used to believe that religion is the solution of everything. This person, he absolutely rejects that. He says that the dominant power uh, is with the person, or thing, or phenomenon which is you know which is which has power at that specific time. So there is no permanent power, there is no permanent supremacy or authority. Then we have Julia Kristeva, who is still alive, and she's almost 80 years old, more than 80 years old, rather. Uh, she is basically a linguist. She studies linguists, and so Kristeva basically is a linguist, and she studies the relationship of language with psychoanalysis, with feminism, and with literary theory. And she believes that the language you know language is something that is that tells you about a person, about the way language is used. Your personality is revealed through your language. So she believes that language has two purposes. On one hand, it can transform, and on the other hand, on the other extreme, she believes that it has a transformative it can reform, it can transform, but it has a disruptive role as well. It might destroy as well. So the language is basically, and it is your unconscious. It expresses your unconscious, those things which you cannot show to anyone. Your language shows those things. And she also is a proponent of subjectivity, that is your personal, it is your personal use of language that is going to bring your inner uh, inner thinking uh, to the forefront. So the next part that you are going to add to your uh, this postmodernist essay, you are going to write about the authors that are considered to be the representatives of postmodern era. Let's move on to them. So the first writer or representative of postmodernism is Jorge Luis Borges, and he is an Argentinian writer of short stories. He is mainly known for his work of fiction. He has written a collection of short stories called Fictions. Okay, and these stories they discuss the theme of uh, uh, existence of reality, themes of infinity. You have labyrinthine structures, that is, your society is not a simple thing, rather it is a very complex, complicated phenomenon. And even in his writing you find that there is a blurring of reality and fiction, imagination and reality, and which adds to the beauty of his writing. Let's move on to the next writer. The next author, postmodern author, is Italo Calvino. This is the Italian pronunciation, and he is famous for his work "If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler." So obviously, this is an unconventional title. If the you know the writer is using a conditional as the title of a story. Here he uses metafiction and intertextuality to explore the relationship between the reader and the text. He and again his works are open to a lot of interpretations. The next postmodern author is Salman Rushdie. He is the writer, or he's basically a fiction writer. He has written a lot of fiction, and Midnight's Children is one of those novels. He has made use of magical realism. Magical realism is that phenomenon that makes use of things that are not living or that are dead as characters, as protagonists. They are presented as real people who are alive, who have feeling, who have their sensibilities, etc. So he uses a magical realism and historical fiction. His Midnight's Children is a combination of both these subgenres of fiction. And basically, he has used these to again challenge the meta narratives of national identity and history. And he believes that there is no national identity. Everyone has his personal identity, and that distinguishes a person from the other one. So there are some other literary works as well. These the masterpieces of the authors have already been told to you. Now we are moving to some other literary works by different people belonging to different nationalities, and how they have contributed to postmodernism, because postmodernism believes in the erasure of boundaries. So people belonging to different identities make use of postmodernist phenomenon to in their writings. Okay, so there are some of the examples are going to come in the next slide. The first novel is Gravity's Rainbow. It is written by Thomas Pynchon, and his this is a novel. It is a real epic, a postmodern epic, not the epic that was produced in the classical eras. And this epic defies traditional narrative conventions. Again, it is a rebellious sort of a novel, and it explores the complexities of war, which was considered to be a very important phenomenon in the past, technology and conspiracy. Then comes White Noise by Don DeLillo. It is a novel which seems to be a satiric novel, and this satirization, this satire is basically on the consumerist culture of late capitalism. That is how, when we have money, how we buy things, and even we buy things which are not required uh, by us. And another important theme that is discussed by DeLillo in his novel is the fear of death, how people fear death, how death is not perceived as something as a savior, as it was perceived by Emily Dickinson in her Because I Could Not Stop for Death. She always imagined death as something very comfortable and comforting, whereas Don DeLillo says that people are the postmodern people, or post you can call Gen Z, is afraid of death, and they believe that death is going to separate people, them from the facilities that have they have in their lives. The next one is House of Leaves by Mark D. Danielewski, and it is an experimental novel. It is about it is this novel is more like a reference book than a novel. Here he has given you notes that are given in the books, in the textbooks, footnotes, endnotes, and the story is being told by multiple narrators. There is not one protagonist, rather a person is confused who the narrator really is. Now let's move on to the next section. Now, how did postmodernism affect English literature? This is a very important thing, because it has not only affected English literature in the past, it has been affecting English literature, and it continues to affect English literature even today. It has completely erased the boundaries of good literature and bad literature, or literature or not literature. So let's study the impact of postmodernism on English literature. In the introductory part, you are going to write that English literature is much impacted by or influenced by postmodernism, and why. You are going to give the reasons then. First of all, because the traditional storytelling techniques, the way stories were told in the past, the postmodernism totally rejects that, rather it challenges that. Then it encourages the possibilities of narrative experimentation. You can write stories in different ways. Then there is an emphasis on subjectivity. Subjectivity is personal feelings, personal ideas, everything, and multiple perspectives. The story is not told with one point of view. You find that many people are contributing to the story. And many people seem to be the protagonists. Then you have a blurring of boundaries between genres. Sometimes you find poems which are written totally in prose, and there are sometimes prose is totally written in poetic form. So there are no boundaries in postmodern literature. Then the postmodernism has totally rejected uh, history, the tradition, norms of history, the norms of identity, the norms of language, and it believes in innovativeness. And lastly, it promotes fragmentation and deconstructed views, that is, views that are going against the grain, innovative views, those views that can be used for experimentation. Then you are going to conclude your answer with the following points: how you have, what have you written in the previous parts of your answer, and you are going to summarize those in the this part. So you are going to tell how postmodernism has revolutionized the whole concept of literature, and not only the concept of literature, how postmodernism leads to multiple interpretations, how it challenges established norms, even to the extent that a person gets confused what is truth and reality. It encourages playful and self-reflexive storytelling, the innovative ways of storytelling, and then more ways of narrative writing have been introduced by postmodernism, and new ways of communicating with the text have also been introduced through postmodernism. uh, Questions what is the dominant culture or which is not the dominant culture, and its impact continues to affect English literature and contemporary authors, and it further gives it has further given birth to more narrative forms. And resultantly, because of all these qualities, you find that a literary landscape has been enriched through the introduction of postmodernism, through the establishment of postmodernism. Thank you for your patient listening, girls. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best for your exam. See you in the next video about psychoanalysis. See you. Allah Hafiz.